Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Life Lessons, and we're presenting it on the bike again today. Beautiful day outside, couldn't resist getting out. It is still a little chilly even though we're in springtime, and you can kind of see the trees starting to bud out a little bit, and flowers are blooming, and just a beautiful day to be outside and riding around. I want to thank you for tuning in again today. I hope that you're enjoying these rides on the bike, and hope that they're meaningful to you. It's even, I get to do two things that I love doing. I love giving life lessons like I'm doing here, and then I also love riding on the bike. So I get to do two things that I simply love doing. I got to thinking about bike trips and things that just even taking a local trip. Particularly on a motorcycle, you can't take everything with you, right? You just even if you're doing particularly an over the road trip, there's a lot of things that you have to leave behind. You want to take, you have to be ready for all kinds of weather, so you got to, t-shirts, long sleeve tees, jackets, rain gear, stuff like that. But even on just a local trip like what I'm doing today, never been on this road before, so we're on an adventure together. But I got to thinking about applying that to a life lesson. What is it about leaving things behind that we could apply to on the motorcycle, that we could apply to life in general? Even if you don't ride a motorcycle, the same thing would apply to you. So I've come up with 5 things here, and I just want to walk through them with you. And I'll talk about different passages along the way, so there's not just one passage for all of these. There's going to be 5 different passages. First of all, in order to grow, in order to mature, in order to be what it is God wants us to be, we need to leave behind worry and fear. Worry and fear. Those are 2 things that will stop growth quicker than anything. Many people, when they find out that I ride a motorcycle, they'll say, "Oh, I would never do that. All kinds of things could happen, and you hear about this, you hear about that." And I've shared before in other podcasts that I think it was in 2022, my wife and I were involved in a bad motorcycle accident in was it Charlotte, North Carolina? I think it was Charleston, North Carolina. We were involved in a bike wreck. Well, what would have happened if what would have happened if I would have let the fear of having an accident keep me from riding again? I mean, riding a motorcycle is one of the biggest joys that I have. I mean, I just love doing it. I just love being out here and experiencing, kind of like the open road, if you will. I just love it. If I could ride every day, I'd ride every day. But worry and fear. Paul says in Philippians 4 verse 6, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." Now think about what he's saying there. Don't be anxious about, does he say some things? No, he doesn't say just some things. Does he say some days? No, he doesn't say that. Don't be anxious about anything. Okay? Now, that accident made us more aware, because up until that time, I mean, my wife and I had been on many over-the-road trips before, with other people and by ourselves, and we had not had an accident. Okay? And yet this happens. And I mean, we were having a good time and enjoying being, seeing the sights and stuff. And then all of a sudden, boom, this happened. Well, if I let fear overtake me, I would never get on a motorcycle again. And in fact, when some people would ask after that accident, they would ask, "Are you going to ride again?" "Yeah, I'm going to. As soon as we can get another bike, I'm going to ride again." And they would say, "You're nuts. You're crazy. I can never get back on a motorcycle after that." And I get it. That's fine. Motorcycle riding isn't for everybody. But apply it to your own circumstance. What is it that you are afraid of? What is it that you worry about? And some people, listen now, some people worry about what they're afraid of. Does that make sense? Beautiful area right down here. Does that make sense? They worry about what they're going to be afraid of. Well, Paul says, don't be anxious for anything. Okay, that's number one. Number two, in order to grow spiritually, emotionally, relationally, we need to leave behind resentments and grudges. Okay, hanging on to anger and bitterness is let's put it this way: it's like carrying a heavy load, right? In the trunk right behind me here, when you lift up the lid, it says in there that the weight limit is this. Okay, and if you go over that weight limit, the bike is gonna be back heavy, and the steering is gonna be off. Well, resentment and grudges are the same way. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6 verse 12 that we should forgive us as we forgive our debtors. Now, he doesn't mean just simply, although maybe it could apply, he doesn't mean simply those who are indebted to us, materially. But someone who has hurt us, someone who has maligned us, someone who, they breached a confidence, whatever the case may be, the teaching there is not to hold on to resentment or grudges, because if you the longer you hang on to those two things, or either one of them for that matter, the longer you hang on to that, it starts eating away at you, and it starts affecting you spiritually. It starts affecting you emotionally, psychologically. We know that some of the, and you may know some of the most miserable people on the face of God's green earth are people who hold grudges and resentment. Okay? So, number one, we need to leave behind worry and fear. Number two, we need to leave behind resentment and grudges. And number three, we need to leave behind envy and comparison. Oh, that's a big one right there. We need to leave behind envy and comparison. Paul said in Galatians chapter 6, verse 4, he said, each of you, he says, each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride. They can take pride in themselves alone. Notice that. One of the hardest things to do in today's culture with social media the way it is to keep from comparing ourselves to comparing ourselves to someone else. I wish I had what they had. Wow. I wish I could do what they could do. I wish I could afford to go there, go here, go there. I wish I could do those things. Paul says, look to what God has blessed you with, and be content with that. Just be content with that. Okay? And that's easier said than done. I acknowledge that. That's easier said than done. So we need to leave behind worry and fear. We need to leave behind resentment and grudges, and we need to leave behind envy and comparison. So one of those leads to another, all right? So we start off comparing what we don't have with what somebody else has. You hear that? What we don't have that somebody else has. Okay? And Paul says, look, don't do that, because that then the comparison starts leading to envy. And envy will lead to, it leads to a whole bunch of other stuff, okay, is what it does. It leads to a whole bunch of stuff. Negative. Okay, number 4 is leave behind, and this may sound a little odd, but leave behind worshiping idols, okay? In Exodus chapter 20, verse 3, God said, you will have no other gods before me. You will have no other gods before me. All right? So what is an idol in today's culture? We don't really think of that. We might think of other cultures as having idols, but not us. Oh, yes, we do. An idol is anything or anyone that you and I put above God. Okay? I have to do some weaving here. Anything or anyone that you and I put above God, even family, even if it's our kids. If we put our kids above God, there's going to be problems. Okay? God says, I will share first place with no one. No one. And so, we need to leave that kind of stuff behind. Worship. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have fun and enjoy life. God meant for us to do that. But when that thing, or that if, for instance, I love my motorcycle. I absolutely love being on it. I love riding. But if for one day, one moment, this bike took precedence over what I do at church, or attending church, or reading the Bible, or preparing for a small group lesson, whatever it might be. If this were to take precedent over that, I firmly believe that somehow, some way, it may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but in some way, God would take this motorcycle away from me. Something would happen to it. I would get into I don't know. Now, I acknowledge accidents happen. Okay, doesn't mean that God causes accidents. But God can engineer where, something blows up on this bike and it's too expensive for me to fix. Okay? Anybody that owns a Harley can tell you that even just to get the bike serviced is quite expensive. Okay? So leave behind idols. So now we've got 4 things thus far. Leave behind worry and fear. Leave behind resentment and grudges. Leave behind envy and comparison. Leave behind worshiping idols. And then finally, 5th, leave behind living according to the world system. Now, what do I mean by the world system? The world system is a way of thinking and behaving. Okay? The world system says you've got to get ahead. You've got, it doesn't matter who you step on, you got to get ahead. Success is determined by the amount of money you have in savings, or the amount of money you have in checking. Don't worry about it. You need to be out for yourself, just yourself. Don't worry about anybody else. Don't care about anybody else. All for you. Okay? That's the world system. And it pulls at us. It absolutely pulls at us. And so we have to resist that at every turn. We have to resist that. And oftentimes the world system and the biblical world system are totally at odds. Totally at odds. And so we have to understand that and not get pulled into thinking like the world system and behaving like the world system. Okay? So those are 5 things real quick that we need to leave behind worry and fear. We need to leave behind resentment and grudges. We need to leave behind envy and comparison. We need to leave behind worshiping idols. And we need to leave behind living according to the world system. Okay? Well, look, I want to thank you for riding along with me on this beautiful ride. Man, look at those trees over there on the right. Oh, I just absolutely love that. Nice little lake there. This is what I love about getting out on the motorcycle, sharing with you guys and sharing, God's creation with you as well. Well, I want to thank you for riding along. I hope this life lesson on what we need to leave behind in order to grow has meant something to you, that you'll take something away from this and then you will apply it to your life. So I'll look forward to seeing you next time on the bike. The weather's getting warmer. I think really cold weather's behind us, so I'm going to be out on the bike more. And so I'll be back here next week on the bike. Looking forward to sharing another life lesson with you. God bless you. Thanks for riding along. You have a great day.